and welcome to the world's favorite youth baseball podcast, Clearing the Bases, featuring Coach Jimmy Filangieri. I'm David Friedman, and I want to thank you for coming along this ride with us. How are we doing today, Coach?
Doing good, Dave. How's everything with you? I know, well, wait a minute. I don't even want to ask that question, okay, because I know how things are going with you. You got your Philadelphia Eagles in the Super Bowl today, so I know you're excited.
Super Bowl, baby! Yeah, we're excited. It's a little trepidatious, it's a little nervous, but very excited. Happy that they're there, and hopefully we get a good game out of it.
Well, wait a minute. You said that you're nervous. Wait, we got to talk a little bit about this. All right, so there's no reason to be nervous because you can only control what you can control. Am I wrong?
Sure. I'll just tell myself that all day long.
I can't control what they do. They're going to win the game. And, look, I look at it this way. I'm a big Giant fan, so I'm not an Eagles fan whatsoever. So, to be honest, I'm going to be rooting for the Chiefs. However, I will give you that Philadelphia is probably the better team.
Well, we'll see. I still, obviously, we'll say, duh. That's a stupid thing people say. But we are favored by Vegas at this point, but it's 1.5, which to me, that's a toss-up, right? But last time around, we were serious underdogs and kind of, the team fed off that vibe. I keep saying we, like I have anything to do with it. The team fed off that vibe. Just another one of those stupid things. Yeah, my team. No, not my team. But yeah, we're looking forward to having a good competitive game. Hurts had the shoulder issue a month ago. Has not, even though they blew the two teams out in the playoffs up to this point, he didn't look great throwing the ball. His legs are working great, but so we'll see. Hopefully the other 2 weeks of rest and rehab have done wonders for him, because I think they're going to, obviously expecting it to be a high scoring game with the Chiefs. It doesn't matter who they have on their rosters. It's basically, you can talk about them like you did with Tom Brady. You got Mahomes on the field.
You don't know what's going to happen.
You got to expect they're going to score.
Yeah.
That's it. So we'll see. I think we have the firepower to keep up, and I don't think they have the defense to make that implode or anything. So hopefully we come away with another victory. I'll be rooting in my war room as hard as I can.
Well, you know that I'm not going to say jealous. I'm very envious, because you had your Phillies in the World Series. Now you have your Eagles in the Super Bowl. This is a great year for your teams.
Yeah, it's crazy, to go from, a lot of drought on both ends. The Eagles, it was 5 years ago, but you look at it, it was a long time before that we had been in the Super Bowl. So, and the Phillies obviously had been since 2009. So it had been a long time, and it was a great year to be a Philly fan. That's for sure. Yeah. So, and fortunately, I'm not really a basketball or hockey fan, because if I was, I'd be pulling my hair out for that. But so yeah, no, we're in good shape. We're in a good position, and we should be able to take the W today.
I wish you all the luck in the world, but all I'm looking for, one way or the other, is that it's a good competitive game, and then I'll be a happy man. Yeah. And
I got to tell you, even like the championship game with the Eagles against the Niners, after Brock Purdy got knocked out, and the Niners fans crying about their and Josh Johnson got knocked out. Oh, we didn't even have a quarterback. And okay, well, that's how the game goes. And it's in terms of, being on fourth string, fifth string. Got to be realistic. Their first string quarterback, I don't know if we want to get into this here, but their first string quarterback, their starter for the beginning of the year, was a complete unknown. Right. Trey Lance, really had barely thrown a ball in the NFL, and he gets knocked out. The backup, Jimmy Garoppolo, who was their starter for a couple of years, we know what he is. He is purely mediocre. Right? Could he have gotten them to the Super Bowl again? Maybe. But you need an awful lot of things to go right. Now you got Brock Purdy, and you got this diamond in the rough, right? Somebody that never, again, Tom Brady, nobody ever thought he was going to be anything. And here he is, and he plays great all year. So I mean, him getting knocked out is huge, but then, you go into a guy that's been in the league for 15 years and never did anything. And then that's it. I mean, would the Eagles have still blown them out? Who knows?
Right.
Because obviously they changed their game plan completely.
Right.
Once the quarterback was out.
To your point also with Brock Purdy, nobody expected anything like he gave. It just wasn't expected, and look what happened. So yeah, you never know is what it comes down to. I mean, yeah, I would say that you're going into your fourth string quarterback. Yeah, chances are you're not going to have a really good guy back there. But again, you never know. But look, like I said, is all I could hope for is a competitive game today, and that would be great.
Yep, looking to have some fun tonight. Eat some crappy food, and abuse the body a little bit tonight, and then start back in with training tomorrow. So we can. And it's baseball season, officially baseball season, starting with tomorrow.
Yeah, that's right. So I mean, I'm looking forward to that. Hopefully, we've talked about it a million times. Hopefully, we see a little bit more excitement in the game. I don't know if we talked about this before, but maybe a couple of weeks ago, I was watching a rerun of the '86 World Series, Game 6, Mets-Red Sox. And I got to tell you, I watched the game, in '86 live when it was happening. Sure. But watching the rerun, I was on the edge of my seat the whole game. The whole game. There were things happening. There was one inning that the Mets bunted 3 times. There were hit and runs. There was steal. There was action. It was a game.
Yeah. Baseball. Yeah,
it was baseball. Hopefully, maybe something like that will start coming back. Who knows?
Yeah, hopefully. We shall see. We'll see. We talk about it enough on here. We've had plenty of our guests that have talked about things like that, or Jeff Fry's and Kevin Gallagher's and whatnot, about getting back to the roots of the game, and how on the edge of the seat we are. And nowadays it's primarily just, is this guy going to hit a home run?
Right.
Is this guy going to hit a home run? Oh,
right.
Nope. Is this guy going to hit a home run? So totally different viewpoint, totally different way that the game seems to have evolved, and most would say not for the better.
Right. So, that's all we could say right now. We hope for a good baseball season. We hope for a good competitive game in the Super Bowl today, and we'll take it from there.
All right. On today's show, it's not just going to be you and me speaking about a different sport. So we're very, very fortunate to be able to get with us Mike Capps. He is the announcer for the AAA Texas Rangers team. He has been doing it for over 2 decades. He's got just a ton of interesting real-world experience, much less the baseball world experience, and I'm excited to hear what he has to say to us today.
Yeah, so am I, Dave. One of our loyal listeners, Wes Hamilton from Texas, reached out to me and said, you might be interested in talking to Mike Capps. He wrote a book called Grinders. He is the voice of the Round Rock Express. He does all their radio broadcasts for the Texas Rangers AAA club. And I thought it was a great idea to hear about his book. His book, Grinders, is all about players in the minor leagues and how they have to, quote unquote, grind to stay afloat, pretty much.
Yeah, and he's got a really interesting perspective on it, being that he is, kind of the eyes in the sky. So he's seeing these kids, and most of them are kids, come in and it's that last step, that last hurdle that they need to get over before they can get up to the big show. And again, I'm really, really interested to hear what his take is on how that goes, and just hearing a little bit about his life and how he got to where he's at. I'm sure plenty of our guys, we've gone through this list many, many times on the show. The number of little leaguers that become senior leaguers drops down. The number of senior leaguers that play high school ball drops down, and then to college ball drops way down. The number of people. So with all of those people, there's still all these people that love baseball that maybe aren't gifted enough, naturally gifted enough to make it to those higher levels. There's other avenues to still stay involved with the game. And here's a guy who he played college ball, and then now he's been announcing for 22 years, and he loves his life. Yeah. I mean, and his journey, or his story, I'll say, is an interesting one. How he went from
being a news reporter, CNN, ABC, NBC, and how he walked away from that for this assignment that he has, which you'll hear him explain that he couldn't be happier about where he is.
All right. So without any further ado, let's introduce Mike Capps. So welcome to Clearing the Bases. Mike, thanks for coming out with us tonight.
Listen, I'm just excited as all get out to be here and visit with you guys. It's wonderful to talk baseball, especially in January. January to March the 31st for me just goes so slowly. And it reminds me, I don't know, I'm sure you guys have heard this. Somebody asked Rogers Hornsby, who is a Texas native, God rest his soul, what he does in the off season. He says, I just go to my window, I put my face against the glass, and I watch to see when it's going to turn spring, and then I go play ball.
I love that.
And it takes so long to get there that I'm ready to roll right now. So I'm just glad to be with you guys.
So I got to tell you, Mike, when Wes Hamilton, one of our listeners, reached out to me and said, I got a guy that you may want to talk to. His name is Mike Capps. And he said, let me see if I could put you in touch with him and get contact information. And he got back to me and gave me the information. You and I talked, and within 5-10 minutes of you and I having a conversation, I felt like I've known you my whole life.
Well, Jimmy, as you know, I lived in New York City for several years, basically off seasons, and got to know people up there. And there's a side of me that really misses the vibe of New York and the people of New York. And I've had conversations with folks up there that were living in my neighborhood and in Midtown Manhattan. And it sort of was the same thing talking to you. And I thought, hey, this is a good dude. I want to keep in touch with him. And that's the way friendships are formed. And baseball's great for that. And it's one of the reasons that I love doing what I do.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you 100%. I think that the baseball world, I'm finding out more and more as time goes by that it's all about the relationships that you build, and just have met so many wonderful people and had great conversations with so many people, and I'm really happy to add you to that list.
All right, so where do we start with you, Mike? Your history, your career is so varied. You want to talk a little bit about how you got into baseball broadcasting from where your regular background was from?
My regular background has always been baseball, one way or the other. My grandfather, who was a Pirates prospect before World War I, introduced me to it and took me to the old ballpark across the street from downtown Dallas, across the river from downtown Dallas. And that's where I learned baseball, besides playing in Little League and watching him throw. And I understood why he was a prospect, because of the way he threw a baseball, even when he was in his late 60s, early 70s. But I got off into the news business after I played ball in college. And I was a correspondent for CNN. I worked in management at ABC News. And it was during those days at ABC that I realized I didn't really want to do that long term. Then, I went to CNN as a correspondent. And I'd already covered really serious police news in Houston when I was in my 20s. So I had a background of seeing people blown apart, just to be candid. And I woke up in the middle of the night toward the end of my run at CNN, and I had busted my head wide open with a bedpost. And I got into therapy, and I needed to get into therapy. And less than 2 years later, I was done with the news business. And nobody called it PTSD in those days. But I had all the anger issues, night sweats, you name it. And I got into therapy. And had I not done that and been encouraged to do that by a lot of people, I couldn't be doing what I'm doing now in baseball. And it sort of segued to quitting CNN, writing a book. My first book was with the scout who discovered Nolan Ryan. He had scouted me in high school and college, and it just led into a very nice life, a great life. I've got a baseball wife who's unbelievable. I've got 7 grandchildren, 5 boys. They're all enamored, all 7 of them, with what I do. And you get in an argument with me anytime at any establishment where we would be having cool Frosties that I don't have the best job in the world, because I think I do.
I think you do too. So
and I get to be on podcasts pimping my book. I mean, I don't know what you want. You know, it's great.
So you
let's talk about that for just real quick. I just want to make a mention of it. So we're on with again with Mike Capps. He's the author of Grinders, Baseball's Intrepid Infantry, and happy to have you on to talk about it.
Well, Grinders, again, we talked about my grandfather and his role. We were sitting at Old Burnett Field across the Trinity River from downtown Dallas. I was 8 years old in 1959, and my grandfather pointed to a guy in the outfield. Everybody took infield and outfield in AAA ball every day. And my grandfather would get out. We'd watch these guys throw, and it was just awesome. And I'd try to mimic them when I went back to play Little League, and it stayed that way. But he says, he points to the guy in left field. He said, pay attention to that guy. He's going to be something someday. Well, it was Carl Yastrzemski playing for the Minneapolis Millers.
Wow.
And he had check marks on his score sheets. And I said, what's that? He said, well, Minneapolis Millers are the Boston Red Sox AAA affiliate. You're going to see the guys I checked back and forth between the big leagues and Minneapolis. And you're going to see the Dallas-Fort Worth Rangers guys that I checked back and forth between Kansas City. They were the Kansas City A's in those days. Show you how long ago that was. And he said, these are the guys that drive baseball's bus. Gentlemen, that stuck with me for 60 years. And I woke up in January of 2018, and I started writing notes. And my wife, it was 3 a.m. My wife looks at me and she goes, what have you lost it about now? Well, there were notes on talking to some Major League Baseball people that I knew. Chuck Hartenstein, who's listed as a co-author. Chuck died a year before we actually published this book. Was a Major League player, a pitcher, and he and I went to work and we came up with a list, and he passed away at the end of the 21 season. And we got a contract midway through November and published it in July of 22. And it's just everything that we came up with, the 43 people that we have profiled, each have individual stories of absolutely pinning their ears back and refusing to take no for an answer. Some played in the Jim Crow South and had shotguns put to their necks.
Wow.
Some were in World Wars. Hank Bauer, the old Yankees outfielder, played 12 years in the big leagues with shrapnel in both calves and his back. I mean, on and on it goes. We even have the story of a pitcher who was not thought to be much of anything and yet battled his way into AAA, and finally, after 10 or 11 years in the minor leagues, got a start, and the start was rained out, and he never made it back. Wow. I mean, the things that these guys go through, ups and downs, releases, outrights, off the 40-man roster, and having to face a family, wife and kids, and say, well, I'm going back down to AAA. It takes a toll on people, and yet they succeed. Brian Downing, who played for the Angels and later finished his career with the Rangers, nobody wanted him even to play in JUCO. He went to JUCO, sat on the bench, went 1 for 3. A guy who was a part-time scout for the White Sox was his summer league coach. And he says, I'm going to tell you something, Brian. I'm going to sign you if I get a chance. And Brian's going, what? Signs him. 2 years later, he's in the big leagues. 22 years later, he retires. I mean, this is the human spirit at its zenith to me. And that's what we wrote about. People who just wouldn't quit. Lorenzo Bundy, for instance, is still managing, and he's in his late 60s. Lorenzo was released by the Rangers. He actually rode a bus to the Pirates spring training camp, begged for a place. They had none for him. He said, what if I pay my own room and board? They said, fine. He walked 6 miles round trip to Pirate spring training and made a team and ended up playing in AAA and playing in Mexico and managing in Mexico, still does, and is one of the all-time great managers in Mexico. His wife's from Mexico, and Branch B. Rickey, the grandson of the original Branch Rickey, told me as I was writing this book, he says, if Lorenzo Bundy is not in this book, there should not be a book. Well, you know what? Lorenzo's in the damn book, and Branch is fine, and I'm fine, and we still love each other as friends. But it's again, my whole life in baseball is a blessing, and it's a blessing to have written this book and for people to notice, and it's a blessing to get to be on podcasts with guys like you and Chris Jimenez and Jim Memolo on MLB radio, and it's a thrill to talk baseball and a thrill to talk about this book. But I don't have to sit here and wax poetically about my book all night. I'll go anywhere that you guys want to go with this. And so, but that's it. That's what Grinders is all about. Barnes & Noble has it. It's on. If you walk into a Barnes & Noble, ask for Grinders, and they don't have it on the shelf, it's in their catalog. Amazon can get it to you the next day. And it's a quick read. I wrote it's 400 pages, but it's a quick read because I wrote it that way and intended to write it that way. Simply telling stories of what guys go through in this game. You know, there's like three stars on every team, and everybody else is grinding it. And not that stars don't grind, but to stay there. Ron Swoboda played for the Mets, played in the big leagues for 9 years. And he'll be the first to tell you. He made that great catch in the '69 World Series. He'll be the first to tell you he came to the ballpark every day knowing he could lose his job, and he needed to bust his butt every day in order to stay. Right. This is what we're talking about. And these people are so wonderful to talk to, and the stories they tell are just absolutely incredible as far as I'm concerned.
But, you know, Mike, you said that you didn't want to go on about your book, but I think that it's important to do so because those type of stories are things that have been lost now, where people don't understand what that quote-unquote grind is to make it. A lot of people feel entitled now, and they don't realize what your book brings to light in the grind and what it really takes.
Well, Jimmy, you make a great point there. And one of the things when I go do live speaking engagements, one of the things I try to emphasize is the fact that within that audience, there are grinders. If you're a single parent with a couple of kids and a couple of jobs, ladies and gentlemen, you're grinding every day. If you're a small business owner and you are besieged by the federal government with a bunch of rules and regs, you're a grinder. If you have a 40-hour-a-week job, you're not in the upper management echelon, but they say we need you to work 60 hours the next 3 weeks, and you sign up with a smile on your face, you're a grinder. Yeah. And people need to understand that there's a real spot at the end of the rainbow for folks who are willing to go through the pain and suffering of the grind. At the end of the day, I don't know anybody who has really grounded out that didn't come away with a smile on his or her face. And I could sit here and talk to that about an hour just on its own, simply because they paid a price and they value what they have. It's sort of like when the Pilgrims got off the boats coming over here and they realized what they had. They'd escaped basically involuntary servitude, and they had a chance to live life to its zenith, and they had a chance to do it without a lot of rules and regs, and they ground. You think they weren't grinders? I mean, get over here and what the heck is this? A bunch of trees and somebody trying to chop your head off every now and again, and they had to grind and make it happen. But at the end of the day, the grind is all the same. We're going to do it in our work sometimes. Ball players do it. Hockey players do it. Everybody who's in the athletics business does it, or they don't last. And it's the stories of human courage here and intent and passion are just amazing. And it's all about what's in your heart and what you believe you can do.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's something. Obviously, Jimmy and our show is generally catered towards either the younger crowd themselves or the parents and the coaches of the younger crowd. You're developing players, real developing players, and the art of the grind has certainly. I think the idea of that has kind of gone away in this environment that we're in, where if a ninth grader on my team doesn't play one game, there's complaints. If there's somebody that's on a team, they're not playing the position that somebody thinks that they should be playing, there's complaints. So the real world effects of going through that grind and how that prepares you for the next thing. Like I said, it's obviously, we're primarily talking about sports, but we're talking about life. The benefits of that definitely seem to have gotten lost with the newer generations.
But I can't disagree with that. I would say this, what I've tried to do, I have 7 grandchildren, and they're all talented in their each individual ways. 2 of them are really, really good athletes. And every time I'm with them, I preach the sermon. And they have to step over parents, not theirs, because their parents both were jocks. But it's so unfair, in my opinion, to little guys who are just learning the game all the way up until they start to play select ball, for parents to jump in and my little boy's not getting to play and yak. Well, you know what? There's a reason, but just have him keep working, because if he wants to do it badly enough, he's going to do it. You can't, there will come a time when you will not be, if you keep pushing him in the wrong direction like that and sitting in the stands, yelling at other kids, yelling at your own kids, that's not the way to get this done. It's just not. It turns off more kids. I know too many coaches that have gone through this, and they say it's a nightmare. It's a nightmare, and it's not fair to the kids, and it's not fair to the coaches. When they're all they're doing is making a value judgment on who they see is the best to put on the field, so everybody has a chance to play, and everybody has a chance to win, and everybody has a chance to get better. And it's just not fair to treat especially little guys like that, boys or girls.
I agree with you 100%. But I have a question that I wanted to ask regarding the grinders. And we're all guilty, coaches that are down at the youth level and high school coaches, we're all guilty of saying that things are different now, that the kids don't really know how to grind. But what is your opinion on, do you think that the guys that are the grinders are the ones that elevate themselves? That, in other words, that it's always been that there aren't, everybody is not a grinder, not everybody has that motivation, and the guys who do have it are the guys who excel?
Well, let me start this way with that, Jimmy. What I'm talking about here is parents simply need to shut up and let the coaches do what they do and the kids do what they do. And if you're a little guy or little gal who's playing softball or little league or whatever she's doing, if they have the inherent passion to continue on, they shouldn't be made to feel a failure if they miss a game or they don't get to play and everybody else does. Well, I guess leagues now, I guess it's still the same way it was when my kids were coming up, that you had to play every kid in a game and that sort of thing. Well, okay, but life's tough.
Yes.
And the lessons learned there in failure or sitting your butt down on the seat and watching the other kids play and you want to play, how badly do you want it the next day? How hard are you going to work to show the coach that you deserve to be out there? I mean, what is up with that? Are those lessons not being taught at home? I don't know. But I know this. It's the correct way to allow them to fail. Because if they don't fail, how are they going to learn to pick themselves up? And they are going to fail. It doesn't make any difference whether it's Little League or, in my case, high school and college trigonometry. I couldn't spell it, but I was still battling trying to get it right. And you just have to let your kid. It's hard to see your kids fail, but you have to allow them to do it.
Sure. The parents are trying to be a safety net. They're trying to protect their kids. But again, like what you just said, in the long run, they're going to fail. It's part of life. So by you providing that safety net for them is only really hurting them. Let them fail. Let them learn from their mistakes. I mean, one of the things that I used to say in my line of work is if you're not making mistakes, you're not learning.
Exactly. And I'm going to go back to my old buddy, Brian Downing. He said, I fail so much, I got sick of it. And once this coach he had in summer ball got him in an organization and they saw what they had, they saw what his summer coach saw, what his high school coaches didn't see, his junior college coach didn't see. They didn't see a potential 22-year big leaguer. It's what they didn't see. Right. They couldn't identify the passion. They couldn't identify the love. They couldn't identify the rock-jawed determination this guy had that, my God, I am going to be a big leaguer. And of course it doesn't happen for every kid. We know that. The trickle-down effect from Little League to getting to the big leagues is just it's a very, very tight squeeze, and we all know that. But it's okay to let them fail because they're going to learn so much from it. Life's lessons. Isn't that what sports is supposed at the child and high school level is all about? Learning how to cope when you fail, getting up after you got your butt dusted off, or you've been knocked down, get up, get back. How much heart do you have to succeed after that? That's yeah, Jimmy, you're correct. That's apparently, from what I hear from youth coaches and my son-in-law who coaches one of my grandsons, it's parents don't understand that.
Well, I think a lot of time what happens is that nasty word winning creeps into everything, and
oh God,
people don't understand that. At the younger levels, I always say that I don't believe that winning becomes important until varsity level at high school, but before that, winning doesn't matter. So one of the examples I use, and I've done this many times with young pitchers. When I say young, I mean 13, 14, 15-year-old pitchers. Is if they're having a rough outing, I'll call timeout. I'll go out to the mound, and I'll talk to them, and I'll say, listen, it's not going too well out here, is it? And they'll say, no, coach, it's not going good. I say, okay, listen, you're going to stay out here until you figure out how to get out of this. I'm not going to pull you out of the game and give you an out right now, okay? Go to work. I'm going to go sit down. Let's make this happen. And you'd be surprised how many times, more so than not, within the next 3 batters, 4 batters, they're out of it.
Yeah. Isn't that amazing?
Yeah.
Isn't that amazing? And you know what? That translates. We have a story in Grinders about that very thing. And Chuck Hartenstein, my late friend, who was a major league pitcher and a major league pitching coach, went to the mound, and his pitcher is just, he's been rattled. The opposing team has knocked him around. They're playing in front of 40,000. It's loud, loud, loud. And he had runners at second, third, and 1 out. And the game is about to get away from this pitcher. And Chuck took one look at him, and he said, I didn't come out to talk about arm angle. I don't want to talk to you about velocity. I want to talk to you about just slow down. You got the stuff to beat these guys. just go beat them. And he winked at him. Yeah. And Chuck said, the wink won him over every time.
Yeah.
And they took a big, deep breath, and he blew the doors off the next two hitters, and he got out of the jam.
Right.
It was Dan Plesac, and he still remembers that to this day.
Yeah.
That Chuck had that discussion with him. And I think sometimes, and even at our level, pitching coaches or hitting coaches get too involved in launch angles and that sort of thing, and talking to hitters when they're in a bind, or pitchers when they're in a bind, and release points and all that. Sometimes all you need, it's a loud game, especially when you get to AAA in the big leagues, even louder in the big leagues, of course. All they need is a little break.
Yeah.
Just slow it down, go back and do what you do.
Right.
You saw that happen at your level. It happens in the big leagues.
Yep.
And there's if parents will open their ears, there are lessons to be learned from this kind of thing. And but you got to let go. And sometime, you might as well start them early with letting go and just see where they go. Your kids are going to show you what they're going to be. Right. That's going to happen.
Absolutely.
I got 3 daughters and a son, and they certainly showed us. 7 grandchildren, and they all have different talents, but they show us what their passion is, and it's a beautiful thing to watch. And my daughters and son have done such a great job with their kids. They know the way I feel about it, and that's the lesson they teach these kids.
Right.
And it's so hard as a parent not to want to say, that coach, he's so stupid, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, well, where'd you ever play? What'd you ever do? What kind of pressure you ever been under? And end of the day is, they sort of look at you like, well, I'm driving a Bentley out here, so I must know something. Well, whatever. But the bottom line is, let them go.
Right. But you just made me think of something. It's something that I tell parents all the time is, I say to them, on Sundays you're watching a football game. What are you doing Monday? You're beating up the coach. You're beating up the quarterback. This idiot, this and that. So I always tell them flat out. I say, so I'm not dumb enough to think that you're not doing that to me. I know you are. Okay? So what you do is just go out in left field, beat me up all you want. I don't care. Just don't do it in front of my players. That's it.
I don't know where that lesson is learned. I do know before my senior year in high school, some parents asked me to coach one of the 3 little league teams in this tiny little East Texas town where I was raised. I says, fine, but we're going to have a parents meeting. And we did. And I explained, look, you wanted me to do this. I'm going to tell you what I got to have from you. Now, these people are all 15, 20, 30 years older than me, right? And there's probably 20 parents there. And I said, I'm not going to have you yelling at other players on other teams, your son or players on our team. I don't want that distraction. And if you can't go by that, might as well take your kid and go home. Mm-hmm. Well, yeah. There were 20, and they ended up 20 parents, and there were 18 ended up leaving. They took their kids and went home, and the kids didn't get to play. Well, but so my team, the Mud Hens, ended up winning their league, and we had a great time. Guess why? Because every guy got to play, and everybody felt like they were winners. It's not just because what I did. I just tried to give them a place to play and have fun and maybe learn a little baseball. They're little leaguers, for crying out loud. Come on.
So that, I assume that was your first foray into coaching at that point?
Yes, sirree, Bob, and it was my last too.
You learned a lesson real quick.
Yeah. Huh? Yeah, Ben and Doris may have raised an idiot, but they didn't raise a fool. That's what I've always said.
So let's talk a little bit about how you got into broadcasting. So you are on 22 years?
Oh my! The segue from broadcasting has always been a part of my heart and soul, Dave. It just has. And the reason was I'm a child of radio. I had a transistor radio. I'd lie in my bed in East Texas, and on any given night after a Little League game or Pony League game or high school game, I'd go take a shower and jump in bed, and I could twist that transistor radio around to Cincinnati, back up to Detroit, where I heard Ernie Harwell, who later became a father confessor of mine. I could hear the Minnesota Twins. I could hear Jack Buck and Harry Carey in St. Louis. My old buddy Bill Mercer, who's 97 now, the original voice of the Texas Rangers, were doing minor league ball. He and my dad became close friends. And the weekend that John Kennedy was assassinated, my dad, it took my mom and my brother and me to Dallas to be with our grandparents, who were really shaken by the fact that their president had been murdered in their town.
There.
And my dad called down to this newsroom, it was CBS affiliate newsroom, and got Mercer on the phone. He said, "Hey, you got Mike with you?" And I'd already been in Bill Mercer's minor league booth, and I felt comfortable there. And walking into this newsroom the day after Kennedy was shot, it was unbelievable. But it was like, I mean, guys are all smoking then, right? And they're yelling and screaming, and it was film and not videotape, and they're throwing film cans across, and guys are running them upstairs to get the film processed so they can put it on the air as soon as they can. And I just remembered feeling, just like I felt in that broadcast booth, a calm come over me. And 4 or 5 of those guys later became, once I got off in the news business after I quit playing ball in college, they helped me every step of the way, all the way through local news to network news. And then I quit and came back, and Mercer was right there to help me transition back to baseball. So it's sort of a hit and miss shotgun kind of approach. But those guys came up to me later and said, "Here's this 12-year-old guy that, we'd been deer hunting at his dad's place and we knew him, but he's asking these questions that college kids wouldn't ask." And we're walking out. My dad, I lost my dad when I was 17, and it just absolutely spun my world out of control. But we're walking out back to the car, and he said, "You could do this someday." And I go, "You are nuts. I'm from a town of 1,500 people. Nobody from a little town like that gets a job like this. I'm going to be a baseball player." Well, I was, but the way it worked out, 4.5 years after this day, the day after Kennedy was shot, my dad died. Wow. 4 years, almost to the day after my dad died, I read my first radio newscast, and I was off and running. And I just, after 20 some odd years in the news business, I ran out of gas, and I told you the story about banging my head into the bedpost, and I had to get reborn, basically. I'd lost my spirituality, watching people get blown apart. Sometimes it'd take a half a bottle of wild turkey for me to fall asleep. Well, you can't live like that. Nobody can. Right. And I had to get fixed. And I'm still working on getting fixed. And, I just think that's going to go on for the rest of my life. But that said, I wouldn't trade my life for the world. So I'm in my heart of hearts, listening to all those broadcasters and Wolfman Jack from XEG in Del Rio, Texas, selling prayer cloths and all sorts of stuff. That world just mesmerized me, and it still does to this day. I own a radio station in Corsicana, Texas, and it's just, I guess it's part of who I am.
It's part of the grind, right, Mike? You were a grinder, so.
Yeah. Well, there's a blessing from God above that allows this to happen too. So, I mean, come on.
Well, but I mean, yeah, I agree with you. Yes, it is a blessing, but you have to put in the work, put in the time, do what's necessary, have that goal in mind, and work towards it. And it sounds like that's exactly what you did.
Jimmy, I just think everybody comes to their parents with some inbred, inborn, onboard talent. And becomes incumbent on the parents to figure out what that is and guide their kids along in that kind of direction. And I think we've lost some of that because parents are so busy working at both parents working in jobs and things get, and it happens. I'm not criticizing here. I'm just pointing out the things that I've seen. I mean, I was gone all the time, and fortunately, I mean, there was some, there was some stuff that came back in our family that happened because of that. The other side of it is, I think we set an example for those 4 kids that, boy, they get after it, all 4 of them, and their kids are taught that, and it's wow. I'm just blessed. What I said, I'm blessed, and that's my story, and I'm sticking to it. I'm having so much fun with you guys. This is awesome. We got to meet in like Winston-Salem and hang out. That's what it does, about halfway, isn't it?
You tell me when, I'll get on the flight.
Well, I got baseball season coming up, and when I show up at the ballpark and I look out at that field, and I just think about one thing. I got my coffee right here, and I get to do a baseball game. Are you kidding me? What is this?
Life is good.
So beats running a raid with narcotics police or getting shot at covering war someplace. I got shot at in Port-au-Prince, Haiti, during the overthrow of Jean-Bertrand Aristide in 1992, I believe it was. I was out jogging in the morning down near the Capitol. And just, I'm feeling, I got the endorphins running, and I'm having, pow, pow, and I'm hitting the ground, man, and I'm looking for the ditch. And I guess I made it faster on the backside of that 6-mile run. That's fastest I've ever run 3 miles, I'll guarantee you. But I mean, I don't know where you put that. If you can't even get out at 6 in the morning in the dark and go for a run and somebody's shooting at you, you probably ought to get your butt on a plane and get out of there. But I didn't do it, so it all worked out.
So, like Dave said, Mike, so for you've been a broadcaster on what radio station is it?
Well, this is it's 1300 The Zone in Austin. But now, it's funny the way this works. That signal, you can pick it up worldwide. I mean, right. Whether all you got to do is 1300 The Zone, and then there's a click and listen live kind of thing. So I've had emails from Reykjavik, Iceland, from Australia, from China, from Japan. I mean, all over the world. The Iceland thing happened our first year in business. And so this lady says, I'm listening in from Reykjavik, Iceland. So I send a return email, and I said, whatever in the world is going on in Reykjavik that you'd have on the Round Rock Express, for crying out? She says, nothing, obviously. Oh, okay. Well, put me in my spot. But I just thought that was the coolest thing in the world. So, baseball's doing a good job in getting its signals out to people. And I mean, moms and dads listen in, and we know that, and I hear from them. And if I've said something derogatory, I hear from them. We had I'll tell you a quick story about that. We had a really, really great kid that came through in 2006, our second year in AAA. He had been pitching in Albuquerque, and we just lit him up one night. And I called him bulky. He was 6'7" or something, and weighed about 310. And he had quite a girth, and I called him bulky. And his dad starts emailing me and dog cussing me like you wouldn't believe. And so the next week, I mean, that was in Albuquerque. The next week, almost a week to the day later, he's back. He's in Round Rock against us, and he's got a one-hit shutout going through 7, right? and he's hit a home run, and it was 1-0. That was his run.
Wow!
And so, ding, 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 off goes my email, and it's this guy's dad, and he says, "Well, old Bulky is kicking your bony ass, bud." So once you know, the season ends, and in November, I'm looking at the transactions. The pitcher has been signed by the Astros organization, and he's coming to Round Rock, right? So
Of course.
I tell my wife, I said, I'm going to go face this head on. So we have historically taken groups to spring training, and I got off the plane first, got in a rent car and raced to the clubhouse in Kissimmee, and I found the guy and introduced myself. He says, "Oh, I know who you are." And I said, "Well, I just want to tell you," he said, "I just want to tell you, thank you very much for what you did." I said, "What?" I said, "Your dad was really PO'd at me." And he goes, forget about him. He needs an upbraiding sometimes. So we became great friends, and that was one of those escapades where, yeah, mommy and daddy were listening in, and they unloaded on Cappy, so that's okay. We get paid to fade the heat.
I thought you were going to finish it up with he lost 68 pounds and was the healthiest, best shape that he'd ever been.
I forgot to mention that he had lost about 25. He looked great, and he said,
"There you go.
Well, I'm not bulky anymore, so you can't talk about that." I said, "You're a teammate, man. There's no way I'm going to talk about you like that." There's great people.
Awesome.
They're great people in this game, aren't there? Just awesome.
I couldn't agree with you more. You know, Dave and I were just talking recently about my trip to Nashville for the ABCA convention. And
how'd that go?
What's that?
How'd that go?
Oh, Mike, it was fantastic. I mean, just, it's what you said, just what you said. The people that you run into that are in this game are just so friendly, so willing to share, so willing to help. It really is. It's an amazing atmosphere.
Well, in Round Rock, which is 15 miles north of Austin, they have this new luxury hotel that's open right across from our ballparks, 900 rooms. And they had the Texas high school baseball coaches convention going on.
Yes.
And that's a thing to behold.
Yeah. Because
there's there's 53,800, and it looks like going into that thing.
Mm-hmm.
And from the time, things change. I understand that, but baseball's a huge deal, and baseball coaches now have learned to work around Texas high school football coaches, which is not always easy because they always want the best athletes, and they turn out some tremendous kids here, and it wasn't always that way. And those coaches, 99% of the Texas high school coaches do a really good job. They love the game, and they actually play a huge number of state tournament games in our ballpark, and a few over at the University of Texas Longhorns ballpark. But we get most of that now. We're in the midst of a long-term deal with the University Interscholastic League that runs off all the sports, men's and women's high school in Texas, and it's a great relationship, and those parents really behave themselves, and that has benefited us in so many ways that we get return customers. They see what the ballpark is, they see how well it's run. It looks better today in our going on 23 years than it did when we opened it in 2000. Mm-hmm. And that's because the city of Round Rock and the Ryan Sanders, Nolan Ryan's group, they work together trying to figure out what's the next step that we can do to make this place better. And they just do a great job. And and when parents of high school kids come in, they come back, and that just benefits us.
Yeah, I can tell you that when I was doing a little research, I actually saw some photos of your stadium, and we have a minor league stadium, which is I believe it's the High A, right, Dave, for the Yankees?
Starting this year.
Right, and our stadium is very, very nice. But when I saw the pictures of your stadium, I was like, wow, this place is gorgeous. I mean, it's right up there. At first I thought I was looking at a major league ballpark.
Well, it's certainly kept that way, and the groundskeeper is an absolute genius. We host bull riding events on that field.
Wow. We
have that. What is that weightlifting and event that you see on TV?
CrossFit games.
CrossFit. Yeah, we have CrossFit games there in November. Concerts. It's a real concert venue now, and the Austin area is such a live music capital. Those always draw. So and I think more and more operators are understanding that you got to have multi events. You got to keep that stadium humming. I mean, during COVID, our management was wise enough to see that they could actually win more fans over. If they had a food bank, you could order a week's worth of groceries, including alcohol, and pick it up at the ballpark. You didn't have to go in to a grocery store and expose yourself. I mean, you do it from your car. I mean, I thought that was genius.
Yeah.
And our management came up with that. And I mean, that's the kind of thing we do.
That's pretty special.
And David, it's aimed at people needing to understand that, hey, we're a part of you guys. You're the people that pay our salaries, and we want to make life great for you. I don't know. I love the people I work with.
Right, but then again, it's like we were saying before, right? The people that are involved in the baseball world just seem to be, we'll say, that kind of people.
Yeah, and isn't it so much easier to smile than it is to frown and be PO'd all the time? It works better, and especially when we get a chance to visit before games with season ticket holders who've been there since we started in 2000, and they're still in love with it, and they spread the gospel around Central Texas, and it just helps. I mean, and it's just so much easier to do your business that way than it is to run and hide and not want to say hi to people and just act like you're, mightier and holier than they are. I don't get that.
Well, it's funny you say that, because I guess the same applies to baseball coaches, right? If you want to be around the guys that are smiling, having a good time, you don't want to be around the guys that are, full of themselves, so to speak.
Well, I've just found in my 72, I'm 72 going on 36. That's the way I look at it. And in those years, I've just found that the ones you really want to get in the foxhole with are the guys who are maybe go drink a beer with you and willing to do whatever it takes to get whatever you need done.
Yeah, absolutely.
Nice. So let me ask you, I got a couple of kind of irreverent questions for you here.
Get after it. I like irreverent.
Yeah, doing some of my research on it. So give me, and I'll give you a moment to think about this, certainly, but can you think of a player or a coach that came through your facility that wasn't like a highly touted person? It wasn't a first or second round draft pick or anything like that, but somebody that you saw play that you knew was a player, and they wound up making it up to the show.
We had a kid named Cody Ransom who had struggled in his first 5 or 6 years coming up from A ball to AA, batting average wise. He always had pop. This kid could play the infield with anybody, second, third, short, extremely fast. He made it to the big leagues with the Diamondbacks and with the Yankees, and he's out in Arizona, and he's happy. And I stay in relative touch with him, but he's always had that smile on his face. But boy, when he came roaring out of the gates, he was hard to beat. And a lot of people and he was a good sized kid, could run. There was another kid named Brooks Conrad who was out of Arizona and had shots in the big leagues, a little bit with Houston, and I think he was in the big leagues with the Cardinals. Made his money in Japan, actually, and now's a minor league manager in the Royal system. But one of these guys that, if you're going to play against Brooks Conrad that night, he was a second baseman, you better understand that if he had a chance to beat you, he was going to figure out whatever it took, whether it was a bunt, whether it was one hit to the gap and him driving in 2 runs, him hitting it out. He just refused to be beaten. Now, he was sometimes because, I mean, you know, they were playing 140 games. We play 150 now in AAA, which my wife says is good because it's 10 days more that I'm off the street. And that's a good thing. I don't know why she'd say that, but, you know, whatever. Greatest baseball wife in the world. We were at a funeral of yesterday, some scouts and I, of a longtime Philadelphia Phillies scout named Sonny Bowers. Sonny's one of the greatest people I ever met in my life. And another scout named John Flannery, who was with the Braves for years and years, we're looking at each other. And he said, I don't know if Sonny understood how much we loved him. He said, but boy, if he can see down from heaven, he's seeing these people here. And it was such a tribute to a good guy. And it all comes back to, I mean, his kids spoke so highly of him. But again, here was a guy who was a second-round draft pick, never made it to the big leagues, but couldn't give it up and signed some great kids for the Phillies and just ground his way through it and loved every minute of it and just absolutely I'm still he's was sick for about 3 years and I'm still stunned he's gone. That you can't quantify what those people mean to you. I mean, I had a cousin who was a 40-year scout for the Chicago Cubs, and I did the eulogy to his funeral. And I didn't know what to say. I was going up to the podium, didn't have any idea what I was going to say. And all of a sudden I hear the words, Billy did it right. And I did 20 minutes on Billy did it right and how he did it right. And he did it right because he was low-key individual. He signed a boatload of people out of Texas and Oklahoma for the Cubs and just absolutely got it. We need more people like this in our game, and they're such a joy to be around. And you guys have seen them when they have an aura about them.
Yeah,
it's just, I'll answer any question you got. I may have been somewhere you haven't been, but that's not going to keep us from being friends because we have baseball in common. We have the love of the game and love of improving the game in common. But yeah, I could sit here again for 6 hours and rattle off the names of kids who've come through there. Those are the two that when you say that to me, David, it's like when you say who are these? Those are the two that just right off the bat struck me that way.
Nice. No, so that's awesome. I happen to be a huge Phillies fan, so Cody's name sounded familiar, and I just popped it up, and he was with the Phillies for a stint as well.
Yeah, he was.
Yeah, so I definitely appreciate that, and I appreciate all of Sonny's efforts of bringing guys into our organization.
The last time I saw Cody outside when he was playing baseball was we were still with the Astros organization. This must have been in 2009. And he was with the Yankees. You could look that up. That's somewhere, right? And I'll walk over to him, and he sees me, and he goes, Cappy, can you believe I'm with the frickin' Yankees? And I go, no. And he goes, wait a minute. I said, of course I can. What are you talking about? I just want to see if you were awake and listening. That's one of the other things about this game I love. You better be able to take a rip and give a rip back. Otherwise, you're going to be miserable your whole life. You know what I'm saying?
I think that applies to anything, right?
Well, it should, but you know, when you're at ABC or CNN and you're in an editorial meeting with the quote unquote bosses, you probably don't want to rip on them. You know, probably not good for your politics.
Right. You never know what side of the fence somebody's on.
Oh my! And it's not.
Well, sometimes you do know. Yeah, sometimes I shouldn't say. Sometimes you do know. Sometimes you guess wrong.
I'm not talking about Republicans and Democrats. I'm talking about big guy correspondent about to go get sent to cover a war. You just don't. You think that assignment's bad? Watch this.
Right.
Oh my.
So when you're in your downtime, whenever that is, can you, and I like to ask this of people when they're at the higher levels of their profession, whatever it may be, like, can you sit back and enjoy watching games on TV or listening on the radio, or do you listen with too critical of an ear at this point?
Such a great question. We were talking about that today. A couple of my buddies and me, who both of them are now out of the game. The answer to the latter question, am I too critical? Probably. I'm a big believer in allowing the game to play itself out. And there are times when a big home run is hit, you need to let the crowd come up. And people need, if you, a radio especially, you need to allow the crowd noise to filter in. So I'm critical about that. So the answer is I can do it. I'm always in need after a season ends of about 3 days just to sit with Karen and have a glass of wine and chill out. And then by the time the playoffs are up and running, I'm ready to go and watch. And I don't have to be at a ballpark. In fact, I've slapped the boycott on going to big time college football games now. I'm sick of the way people behave and the verbiage they use when they're screaming and hollering, and that just doesn't play. Have been to World Series. I went to the Subway Series and between the Mets and the Yankees. What was it? 2000 was it?
Yes,
sounds right.
Yep.
Really enjoyed that. I just love this game. I mean, I just love it, and I'm in love with it when I watch my grandsons play it. When the Express are playing, I want the Major League game to be a little more real, and I'm not sure that everybody has done his homework the way they should, and that's too critical. I understand, but and I don't like really. I hate to even bring that up because it sounds like here's the old 72-year-old with gray chin whiskers, and he's bitching and moaning about he's mad because he's not in the big. I'm not. I have the best baseball gig in the world in Round Rock, Texas. It's just, and it's just incredible. I have to pinch myself every time, and I do think, and I've said this before, especially in my family. I think had I gone straight from playing in college into a broadcasting gig, broadcasting baseball, I think I probably would not have appreciated this as much as I do from coming from the news background that I came from and being in situations where it's not overstated to say it was life and death. I just think I appreciate it more. And so that's just sort of the way I roll with this. And and I think it makes me a happier guy. And, at 72, nobody's going to come and say, oh, come on to our big league team and stay for 10 years. Nah, people are not going to let you do that. And that's fine, because I've got the best gig right here, right now. And I get to talk to Jimmy and Dave and all of your fans and just tell them, hey, we're having some fun playing ball down here too.
Absolutely. I mean, I think that, like you just said, it's a great game. I think that, I think it's stumbled a little bit, but I think that people are starting to understand, like I think what you were alluding to with, the way the game is played now, especially at the major league level. And I'm starting to see little bits and pieces where maybe the game is getting back or moving in the right direction to go back to what it used to be, where the game was much more exciting.
Well, just to finish crowing about this, we're the Rangers AAA affiliate. When they hired Bruce Bochy and Mike Maddox, right away I knew they were going to make some changes.
Yeah,
we have the Yankees' former AAA manager on board to manage us this year, and a kid named Dave Borkowski, who pitched both for the Tigers and the Rangers, as our pitching coach. If you're going to put veteran guys like Bochy, then you're giving me a different side of what it's been over the last few years.
Yes.
And not the other side was bad. There were good managers, there were great kids, but this is veteran stuff. Bochy is the real deal. Bochy has been in World Series. He's been successful. Mike Maddox, my God, I mean, he was a pitching coach for us for 3 seasons in the minor leagues when he was just learning to be a pitching coach. And what a career he's had.
Yeah.
I mean, you're going to rely on those two right out of the gate, and I mean, and the guys we have on our staff, it's just incredible. And so, Jimmy, I think you're 100% correct about that.
Well, that's good to hear. Mike, I mean, I could sit here and I could talk all night. And
is the commissioner going to rule us dead in the motor pool for doing that? Sorry,
we'll get the pass. We'll get the pass.
That's great. That's great.
Mike, I got to tell you, I appreciate you coming on. Like I said, I could talk baseball with you all night long. I just love the conversations. I love the stories, and I really appreciate you coming on.
Anytime you guys need me, I'm here, and just give me 5 minutes notice and I'll dial you in.
That's great. Yeah, we really appreciate it. We know everybody's time is valuable, so we appreciate you spending a little bit of time here with us and our listeners tonight. So we can find the book at Amazon or Barnes & Noble.
Yep.
How can they get in touch with you if they want to reach out to you, follow you? Are you on your Instagram, Facebook, those kinds of things? I'm
on Facebook, Mike Capps. I'm easy to find. And the other one is Madd, MADDCAPPS @gmail.
All right.
You want to register complaints? I read my email every day.
All right. So if you're a budding young sportscaster, you want to get into it, you have some questions on things that they could work on and whatnot, you can reach out to Mike there. I'm sure he'd be happy to interact with you,
no doubt.
Just like Jimmy and I.
Absolutely. We'll be happy to do that. And I have 2 business partners, and we're about to announce a little thing that our business has put together aimed at up-and-coming young broadcasters and helping them along. So
that's fantastic.
That's going to be announced in about another week. So,
all right, awesome. We'll look out for that. When you get that going, reach out to us. We'll get the word out to our listeners for that as well.
I really appreciate you guys, man. This has been a rolling ball of butcher knives. A lot of fun.
Is that good?
Yeah, it is. People stay out of your way. That's always good.
I might have to use that one.
All right. Well, again, really appreciate you coming on, Mike. Thank you very much. And best of luck for you with the upcoming season, and hope the next couple months until it starts go by as quickly and uneventful as possible for you.
Just speed it up. Speed it up. Let's go. Play ball.
Play ball.
So, Mike, once again, thanks for coming on. I love, this conversation. I love the conversations we've had on the phone, and I'm not going to go away. Every now and then, I'm going to send you out a text message, say hello, and keep in touch with you.
Listen, I lived in New York. I have people who will help me find you. All right, guys, I really appreciate it, and give me a buzz if you need me. Okay.
Thanks, Mike.
Thank you, Mike.
Okay. Thank you.
So there we have it. Definitely a different direction than we normally go on this show. But what'd you think, Jimmy?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. I think it was a different direction. It's not a typical conversation that we have. But, man, oh, man, I think that there were a lot of, we'll call them nuggets in there that Mike understands what needs to happen when you're trying to climb that baseball ladder.
Well, really, in any aspect of life, right? It's I mean, yes, we talk about sports and primarily baseball here, but it's also making the transition to the rest of our world, the rest of our life, which is primarily not baseball based. So, yeah, I mean, he's just his varied background and experiences, some of the stories that he has to tell, and I'm sure he was kind of editing himself as he was talking to us about some of his early life stuff. So it's just amazing where we hear how people continue their journey, or how their journey has gotten to where they're at, things that you just would never know unless you sit down and talk to them.
And he also, made reference to the fact that, all of us really are grinders in whatever we do. It just doesn't only pertain to baseball. There's, everybody out there that works a full-time job and has a family and, goes through day-to-day trials and tribulations. We're all grinding. So I think that there was a message there that, and we talk about it all the time, that not only are we teaching baseball, but we're also teaching life lessons. So I think that Mike understood that. And yeah, I really like the show.
Yeah, it was great. So he gave out his contact information on there. I also found he has a website out there. It's CAPS, CAPPS, PBP, CAPSPBP.com. So we encourage you guys, he's open to talk. You can find out more about him there, find out more about the 2 books that he's written. If you can tune into him online, you don't have to be in Texas, as he said. These things are available worldwide, so you can find him on the web. You can listen to him call his games, find out some more information from him. If this is an avenue that you're interested in going in the broadcasting world, he could be a wealth of information for you there. We encourage you guys to reach out to us. We're at the CTB Show on Twitter. We are clearingthebases@gmail.com. Go ahead and email us, shoot us a tweet, let us know what you thought about the show. Let us know what you thought about us. You can congratulate me on my Eagles win by the time you guys are hearing this. Condolences to Jimmy for his Giants playing golf again this time of year. And hey, in the 90s, I had to put up with a lot of Giant stuff. So, but we appreciate all you guys. Rate the show, give us a review. It helps move us up the charts. Our listenership is growing all the time. You have any ideas for additional guests, just like today? Again, I want to give a shout out to Wes Hamilton for suggesting this and helping hook us up with Mike. And anybody else, you have anybody that you think might be interesting for our listeners, go ahead and reach out to us and let us know. And as the season is approaching, to all of our developmental players out there, please remember the 2 things you can control: your effort and your attitude. Give us 100% effort, positive mental attitude, PMA, great things will follow. Final thoughts, Coach?
So again, I want to thank everybody also for listening to the show and supporting us with each episode that we release. Our listenership does go up. It's been climbing ever since day one, and we really, really appreciate that. We really appreciate guys like Wes Hamilton that reached out and put us in touch with Mike Caps. And Wes, if you're listening, I just want to tell you, from what I can tell, you're doing the right thing with J-Dub. Keep it going. He's doing well. He's moving in the right direction. So, and thanks very much for promoting the show. I can't say enough about the conversation that we had with Mike. I had several conversations with him leading up to the show, and regardless of what direction we went into, we were talking about his life as a news correspondent all the way through baseball, watching the guys come through the minor league system. And I know for sure that Mike knows people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. Thanks, everyone, and we'll see you on the next one.